Hello, what's up everybody and welcome back. Today my area had a huge snowstorm. So today I thought it'd be nice to have a cute little cozy chat about my crisis. I know what you're probably thinking, another crisis. Today I wanted to discuss life and more particularly finding meaning in life. I'm gonna say the word meaningful about like 1,000 times in this video, so just bear with me. If you've been around for some time or have watched some of my older videos, you may know that I've kind of struggled in the past to sort of live a more meaningful life and to sort of even make more meaningful videos on this channel. So a lot of what I've been doing these past couple years is kind of like revolved around this idea of like purpose and meaning and just making sure that the actions I take don't go to waste or amount to nothingness, essentially. But lately I've been feeling the pressure of this like meaning driven life, in the sense that when I feel like I can't put a logical explanation or a reason behind an action or a life event, it feels pointless in a way. Which is obviously not true, and I know that, but sometimes I can't help but to feel it still. And so I've been thinking about this question a lot, and that is, does life need to be meaningful all the time? Or only when it's necessary or when we need it to be? Because really, things are only meaningful because we give it meaning, right? Now I know there are a lot of schools of philosophy that explore the idea of purpose and meaning, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know enough about philosophy to really get into that. And what I'm talking about today shouldn't get like too philosophical, to be honest. So this ramble that I'm gonna give is merely from the perspective of someone who just is thinking a lot about things that I really don't need to be thinking about. Lately I've been bouncing back and forth a lot between this divide of wanting to believe that one day I can live this amazing and always meaning-filled life, but also at the same time kind of leaning towards this idea that life is completely random and messed up sometimes and nothing really means anything, but we just attach meaning to things to cope. I do want to make it clear though, I am not just questioning these things because I've run out of explanations for the shitty things that have been happening in my life these days. Like, I don't believe that life is only meaningful when I can learn like a good life lesson from something terrible and completely meaningless when I can't. But I think there's a certain humanness that can kind of be stripped away when we're constantly looking for solid answers and just getting them all the time. Like, sometimes I think there's something really nice about the unknown staying unknown and just kind of letting it be that way. Like, I would have loved to see like an eclipse before science had like a very realistic explanation as to what it actually was. AKA, I like being delusional. And I know that example is totally different from something as heavy as finding meaning in life, but you kind of know what I'm getting at, right? And I know there'll be a lot of people that are like, well, humans are curious and we look for answers and we solve problems and that's a part of being human. And I do agree. I think as humans we always want answers and we want to be able to connect certain situations or scenarios that are kind of confusing and painful to more positive explanations or life lessons, to sort of feel a little bit better about the fact that life is possibly or ultimately completely unfair and arbitrary at times. Even in the cases that we do justify things for ourselves, they may not always be the right answer, but they're right to us. However, I think a bigger part of being human is understanding that in the grand scheme of things, we know little to nothing, and it's always going to be like that. And sometimes when it comes to certain things, I think it's a lot better that way.
Hi, sorry, so my camera died, but anyways, sometimes I think about the scenario in which I'm given this life where every question or every like thought that I have kind of has like a very clear and like objectively correct answer to it. And I don't know what the measure of correctness would be, but maybe like it optimizes my happiness. From the what should I do today all the way down to the what was my reason to be here on this earth? And out of frustration sometimes I'm like, I wish I had that, you know? I wish I had all the answers. My life would be so much easier and a lot less stressful, but realistically, would that even be a life worth living if I just like knew everything? But anyways, back to the topic. Sometimes in the midst of me like gathering all these life lessons and trying to make light out of like a negative situation, I wonder why it's so uncomfortable for me to just have a shitty thing happen to me and accept the fact that a shitty thing just happened to me and that's all that there really is to it. I feel like I'm always trying to look for the positive or trying to look for what I can learn from this, when all I really want to feel is is just sad, and that's okay too. I guess in my head it's like, oh, sadness doesn't really propel you forward that much, but having a sad situation and looking for a positive message in that, it is progressing me forward. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that sometimes I associate negative feelings with being like stuck on something, but that's not really the case. Life is so complicated sometimes when it doesn't need to be, and sometimes I think the solution to that is to just be. I don't know. Snow pants, don't worry. I think a lot about humans in comparison to bees. Not really, sorry. I think a lot about humans in comparison to other animals. Like, do other animals search for meaning? No. Do they wonder what their purpose in life is? Not really. For example, bees, they are born, they play their role in the ecosystem, which is pollinate, they reproduce, and then they die. And the same thing goes with humans. We are born, we reproduce, we play our role in the ecosystem, and then we die. But luckily or unluckily for us, we are capable of abstract thoughts, and we're conscious beings, so we question these things like purpose and meaning and all that. Like, we all know we're gonna die one day, and that is a terrifying thought. It makes sense why we're looking for meaning all the time, because you might as well make the most out of your time here if you know you're gonna die. Like a pack of wolves when they see one of their members pass away. I don't think they ever think like, wow, that could be me one day, or wow, life is so short, I should be more intentional with my life and live more meaningfully. You know? Like, they have no idea. Okay, I kind of got off track, but back to my bee example. Both us and bees in our most natural state play a very important role in the ecosystem, and so innately we all have like a purpose already. I know that may be a boring take, like, oh, my purpose on this earth is to exist and be a part of the food chain. That doesn't really have to be like your purpose, like not your spiritual purpose, but your natural born purpose. That's not a good way to look at it either. Anyways, it's still pretty important. The only difference between us and bees is that we are constantly questioning this purpose and looking for meaning in things that ultimately don't really have a meaning. But regardless of whether we are looking for meaning or not, doesn't make our existence here any less purposeful. Does that kind of make sense? I don't know if that makes sense. All right, I'm back inside. It was extremely cold out there. You guys like my sweater though? My best friend gave it to me. Anyways, where am I going with this, and am I even making sense right now? I actually have no idea. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm tired of constantly having to justify my own existence. Obviously, I'm saying this to myself because I'm the one that I have to justify myself to. Like, isn't existing just enough? And all the other stuff that we do in the meantime, it's cool, it's exciting, and it's fun, and sometimes sad, and definitely it is important, but that shouldn't give us more or less of a reason to be alive. I mean, I guess it kind of has to in some ways for us to stay sane, but that's a different video. And I know it seems like I'm suggesting that we all have like a free-for-all and people just aimlessly live their lives with no sense of direction or purpose or anything. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think what I'm trying to get at is we as humans are capable of viewing the world exactly how we want to view the world. We have a say in what we want to believe. We have a say in what we want to think our purpose is. I feel like we should use that to our advantage when we can. And when we can make things easier for us, we should make things easier for us. And when we want to just be and exist, I feel like we should be able to let ourselves have more of a calm mind towards these things. Our thoughts have such a big impact on how we see the world. I think I got off track again because I actually don't know where I'm going with this. I think my problem when considering this whole meaning thing is that I kind of used meaningfulness and importance kind of interchangeably. Just because I can't find meaning or life lessons in these little things or these little scenarios that happen doesn't mean it's not important. Why do we constantly feel so pressured to prove that we should exist when we already are just existing? I know there are a lot of answers that you could give to that, but maybe viewing life as just an experience that all of us get to have and not trying to look for little life lessons or looking for the significance in this and that can kind of take the pressure off of us just a little bit, you know? And I'm saying this as an extremely sentimental person who always is like, oh, what's the significance in this and that, and wow. Sometimes I just want to exist. Like, it's exhausting it's exhausting.
Alright, so we've come full circle. I'm back on my bed and there's another snowstorm going on outside. It's kind of late right now, so I apologize if my voice is sounding a little hoarse. But anyways, back to what I was saying. I think the world and my own life experiences have kind of conditioned me to believe that there always needs to be meaning in every single thing. Not only in life as a whole, but in the things that we do as well. And although I think it's important to live life believing that there is some sort of meaning to it, to serve as a guide, to give us hope, and to sort of show us that all of our suffering wasn't just for nothing. Other times, I think it's okay to accept that there is none. Like, can we really look at all the terrible and unfair things that are happening in the world and in our lives sometimes and say that there is meaning and purpose in that? Not really. And I say this all while understanding that I have a lot of privilege to even be able to look at my life and decide whether I want it to be meaningful or not sometimes, or to even have the time to be considering all this. I was watching this video by Cole Hastings the other day where he discusses how Gen Z is lacking purpose. He talks about how we have access to so many truths now and it's kind of causing us to become directionless.
You have the freedom to pick your own truth, and you start to realize that there is no one correct interpretation of reality.
But I think one of the most interesting things that he said in that video is that people don't really like to think for themselves. Because honestly, it's a lot easier to be led.
Because then we can convince ourselves that our actions and the consequences of those actions are not by our own doing.
And although I think he's right to some extent, I don't really think that it should be that way. And although I agree that having so many options can be overwhelming and lead to analysis paralysis, I also think that it's really cool that we have these options because, like I said before, now we're able to look at the world exactly how we want to look at it. We have choices and the options are endless. And so to answer my question at the very beginning of this video, does life need to be meaningful all the time? I really don't know. I think in the end it doesn't really matter what the answer is. As long as your life here is just a little bit better because of those beliefs that you have towards these ideas, that's all that really matters. I feel like life is just a series of little delusions that we create for ourselves to sort of make sense of the world from our perspective. The beautiful thing about this life is that you get to pick and choose what you want to take seriously and what you don't. When you want to give meaning to things and when you don't. So take it easy on yourself. That's all that I have for you today. My apologies if this video was confusing. I think I got lost a couple times too. But anyways, thank you so much for watching if you got this far. I hope you have a great day and I will see you next time.